Greetings, travellers, it's me, Wingover Gimble, famous Gnome Ballad. I'm here to talk to you today about the Demigod of Night, or also known as the Demigod of Darkness and Exile. They are known as Morgust. So, for a little bit of context, the demigods in this land of Loch Realta all wear masks. You're thinking to yourself, well, that's weird, plenty of gods have faces. How come the demigods of this world don't have faces? That's because the reason the demigods came into being is because the draconic protectors, the 11 dragons that are set up to protect Loch Realta, were actually really worried that people didn't have anything to worship. Because people always have to be like, oh, I need a higher power. So they think to themselves, what could I do to set something up? So we'll just create some demigods for them to worship. So they set about trying to create one. The first one they created was Morgust. So now the reason for the mask is the draconic protectors didn't know what they were doing. They were just kind of flying a little bit blind, so to say. So they didn't know what face to give demigods. So a demigod will always end up with a mask because they can never truly decide. Even if someone becomes a demigod now later on, because it now has become kind of a fact of the universe sort of thing, the person who becomes a demigod later on, their face will become a mask. So it's kind of a little weird thing about demigods now in this world. As a result, all the holy symbols are all masks. They're the same mask of the demigod they worship. So that's how it's an easy way to identify which demigod you're speaking to, because they do indeed walk the world. So let's hop on into this story of Morgust, the demigod of night. The night is always dark, and those that choose to lurk within it seldom have the best intentions. They often say a prayer to Morgust to bless their night, though they do so cautiously as to not invite the lonely demigod. Those that have survived an encounter with Morgust say that Morgust was well over 9 feet tall. A shredded black cloak covered their body. They had 4 spindly white limbs, much like a spider though double-jointed. They wear a pale white smiling mask, though slightly cracked here and there, and everywhere they go, they crawl around on those 4 limbs. Many say that, at night, if you hear a voice coming from your window or your door, do not answer the voice, for if you do, you must let them in. Morgust comes to the door of strangers, ever so lonely in the night. They beg and plead to be let in. They ask just for company, just for a nice warm meal with friends. They'll leave right after they're done. They promise. Many know better than to answer Morgust, but every so often, someone does. The moment they answer, Morgust opens the door, locked or not, and crawls inside, their 9-foot-tall form bulkily shifting through the doorway. They will look at your things, they will smell your clothes, they'll wander your home, inspecting every last inch, every last surface. They will ask for a warm meal. You must give it. For if you don't, then you are the meal. Once they're done eating, they will leave. Whether they ate you or the food is up to your manners. How Morgust came about is a strange tale. You see, Morgust is the oldest demigod, the first one ever created. Morgust was born out of the lonely night. When the draconic protectors created Morgust, they did so as a test run, just to see how it would work. They used high magics and captured a portion of pure darkness from the deepest caves and brought it up to the surface. All the dragons focused their thoughts and compressed the darkness more and more and more until it was a tiny speck, no more larger than a marble. A crack formed upon it, then another, then another. But then it just stopped. The dragons looked at it, disappointed, and threw it away. The marble rolled into the deep dark of the caves, bouncing off stones, falling through holes, bumbling off boulders. And it sat in those caves for a year. Slowly, the cracks grew as the magical pressure decreased, and then the marble shattered, toppling out the freshly born Morgust. Morgust sat there alone in the cave, brand new to this world, not knowing anything, barely knowing how to talk. Morgust called out to others, calling out for family, but no one heard them. They waited in those caves. They waited for years. After a while, Morgust decided to leave those caves. Morgust was left alone, no other demigods to talk to. Morgust wandered the land, seeking company and friendship, but all feared them. Even when other demigods were created, they never wanted to spend any time with Morgust. Now, the oldest demigod wanders the world in search of a night of company. And you might be wondering, who'd be following this being? Well, Morgust often has followers who are outcasts or those who stick to the shadows. Thieves, assassins, exiles make up a lot of Morgust's follower group. Morgust themselves, they're not an evil demigod, but due to the sadness and the anger they feel from their loneliness, they've lashed out in brutal fashions a number of times, and so often the more cheery and happy-go-lucky people do not tend to pay homage to Morgust. It is common practice though, even if you're not a follower of Morgust, if you leave a piece of food on the side of the road near some shadows as a sign of goodwill to let Morgust watch over you, you can venture into the darkness safely, whether it be a cave or the dead of night. So that's a little bit lore about the demigods of this world. Morgust, they are the first demigod ever created. Now the demigods, the interesting thing about them, often in world travelers, the gods stick to their divine domains, but not the demigods of Loch Realta. You see, they're all quite young, the oldest Morgust only being a few hundred years old. They wander the world. They travel, they talk to people, they influence things, so it's not, I wouldn't say it's common, but I wouldn't say it's rare that you'll run into a demigod once in your life. If somebody tells you, oh yeah, I saw Morgust the other night, they're trying to get in my barn, you probably believe it because it's not super out of the norm for someone to have seen a demigod. You just have to be careful when you do, because you don't know what's going to set them off. Well, travellers, thank you so much for popping by for our tale. I look forward to hearing from you and hopping into this next time, because there's so much lore. There's so many demigods, kingdoms, species, all sorts of things to explore. Until next time, travellers, I have been Wingover Gimble, famous gnome bad. I bid you all adieu.